Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Come Over for Dinner. I'm so glad you're joining me today. Today I have a very special guest who I am very excited to introduce. Her name is Christine Cohen. She is an author. She has recently been hired as the director of the MFA program at New St. Andrews called Camperdown Writers Kiln. Christine, what does MFA stand for?
It's Masters of Fine Arts, and the one that the Camperdown Kiln is specifically the MFA in Creative Writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, she is the author of two amazing novels called The Winter King and The Sinking City. The Winter King was a finalist in the 2020 Christie Award, and from personal experience, I can tell you, if you do not have it and have not read it, you need to buy it immediately. Do not start at bedtime or you will not sleep that night. My son, personal story, my youngest son, he received it for Christmas when it first came out, and he read it. And he's not the type that just devours books. When he was younger, he was very active and had to be told to sit and read. This book was a little bit different. He read it very quickly in just a few days. And then one evening he came into my room. I was already sitting in bed reading or something, and he plopped it on my nightstand and said, "Mom, you have to read this."
Oh.
I'm like, okay. It's like, no, you have to read it right now. So I picked it up and started reading, and I don't know what time I went to bed that night, and I did finish it the next day, and it was captivating. I absolutely loved it.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Well, welcome, Christine. I'm so glad you could make it today.
Thank you for having me.
She recently signed with one of the largest literary agents in the world to continue publishing books. She is a mom to three amazing children. She lives with her husband in Moscow, Idaho. They also own a restaurant here called Tapped, which is delicious. Everyone loves it, on Main Street if you ever visit or if you live here. What else do you have to tell us about yourself, Christine? There's so much more I could say, but I'll stop there and let her talk.
Well, thank you. I think that kind of sums everything up. Right now, we just started summertime, so I feel like I've really gone back into my major role, which is mother to three. They just wrapped up first, fourth, and sixth grade. So I've got my crew home with me for the summer, and it's funny because I am during the school year when they all go to the classical Christian school here in town. And so I have more dedicated time to be working on my own writing and being the director of the program. But now that they're back, I'm spending much more time doing things like helping our tadpoles thrive and digging out a garden with the kids. And so it's great, though. I love it. It's a really fun. It's nice to go through the different seasons of life where you're able to kind of rest from one type of work and throw yourself into something else. So
yes. And the novels you write are set in different periods. It's not like they're a series. The Winter King, tell us just in general, what was that background?
The setting for that one? That one is supposed to be kind of a maybe 900s Scandinavian-esque village. So, or I guess actually not Scandinavian, sorry, I should say Nordic. It's sort of, I was trying to set it in like a Norway, Sweden type of country. And it's not somewhere that you could specifically pinpoint on a map, but for my own sanity and because I didn't want to have to do all the work of world building, I spent a lot of time researching kind of those far northern countries and what their flora and fauna were like and what the different seasons looked like and what a frozen fjord would look or sound or feel like if you were walking on it, that type of thing. So that one, it's very cold, northern, insulated. It's a small community that's isolated from the rest of the world. So it's supposed to have kind of a claustrophobic feel to it.
And it's a fascinating story. So go read it.
Oh, good. But yeah, and then my second one, The Sinking City, is set in an alternate 17th century Venice. So that one is actually an actual alternate historical novel because I specifically reference Venice and I'm talking about the Doge and the guild systems and kind of the politics of the time. But I added in magic as one of the guilds. So
what was so interesting about that novel was it really did feel like you had been to Venice and walked the streets. I don't know if I ever asked you, but I had that thought of, did she go to Venice to research this novel? Like, how does she write this this setting, this world so well. It was as if I was there.
Oh, good. Well, no, actually, I have never been. So I wanted to go, but then COVID happened.
Yes.
And before that, I actually went with my parents to Italy when I was a teenager, but we didn't hit Venice. And so I spent a lot of time reading about the city. I watched some movies about it. I spent a lot of time on Google Maps doing the street view. So I'd be walking along on the canal, sides of the canals, figuring out where things were. And the nice thing about being alternate historical is that I can change some things if I need to. So if a bridge wasn't in the right spot or whatever, I could kind of fudge it and nobody would.
Right. You weren't saying this is true fact.
Yeah, exactly.
Book.
But I did try to. So one of the ways that I think you make a story feel very lived in and real is by adding concrete details. And so I do try to always infuse my stories with that. Just things like at that time, the wooden bridges were all being redone to be made out of Istrian stone. And so I just thought, I'll just slip that in there at some point. You know, when she's walking along, she'll see them partially through the construction of a new bridge. And, you know, that those types of little details tend to make it feel like it's real, like it happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So interesting. And the novel you're working on right now is a Welsh fairy tale about a forest that no one can remember and a giant buried under a lake. Can you tell us any more about that, or is it top secret?
So that one is, yes, I finished that one and I've sort of put it aside for now until I figure out what I want to do with it. And it probably needs some more revisions, but that one I wrote specifically with my children involved. So I pitched the idea to my youngest, my son, when he was 6. And I said, wouldn't it be cool if you had a house that was on the edge of the woods, but whenever people tried to think about the woods, they would just forget it. But one day somebody finds a way to accidentally open them. And now whatever's in the woods can get out. And he goes, yeah, that sounds really cool. What happens next? And so then I thought, okay, now I have to come up with the story. So I started writing it chapter by chapter. And when I'd finish a chapter, I would read it to the kids at night and I'd get their feedback, which was super fun because sometimes they would say things like, oh, I really wanted this to happen, you know, and so I'd be able to change it knowing what their expectations were. Mm-hmm. Although sometimes they would say, oh, I really wanted, you know, that character to be good or something. And I'd have to be like, sorry, we have to have at least one bad guy in the story to make it worth reading. So that one is definitely younger, but my heritage on my mom's side is Welsh. So my mom is half Scottish, half Welsh. And so I thought it'd be really neat to write something kind of up in that neck of the woods and give it a vibe that I haven't seen very much in very many fairy tales. You know, they have a lot of really neat and interesting fairy tales, and there are a lot of giants up in Welsh and Wales and Scotland. And so I thought, why not talk about that?
Yes, something very unique.
Yes.
And then another one you're working on or maybe have completed is the middle grade fantasy heist about a young thief in the 19th century New York setting.
Yes.
Is that the one that you'll publish next, do you think?
That's the story that I signed with my literary agent on. So when you sign with an agent, usually it's with a particular manuscript. So that was the one that I had sent out to different literary agencies. It's called The Second Greatest Thief in New York, and it's alternate 19th century. So it's in the 1800s in New York, but it's also got like kind of a steampunk vibe to it. There's a lot of like automatons, you know, mechanical creatures, and the main character, yes, she's part of this thieving guild. So there's this whole criminal underground that's existing at the same time. And that one, I actually wrote that one when I was going through the master's program, the MFA program. And then I signed with my agent. So now I'm in the middle of doing revisions on it, which I should have had done yesterday, but
you have a lot of irons in the fire.
I know, and my agent is wonderful, and I told her I would get it to her as soon as I could. But it actually was funny when I started doing the revisions on it, I was making little changes here and there and tinkering with things, and then I hit about the midpoint and I realized all the changes I had made cumulatively now meant that the entire ending didn't work. So I have to rewrite the entire ending.
No.
Anyway, it's fine. This is the way. This is what I have signed up for.
Right. This is the real life of an author.
Exactly. So, yeah, hopefully that one will come out next. We will see.
I'm excited for it. So hurry up with that ending.
Yes.
Have your kids give you some input.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, I can see why they have hired you as the director of the MFA program. It's so exciting that you're going to be helping the next level of students take their writing craft to the next level.
Thank you.
I feel like I need to sign on with the MFA program as my next phase in life.
Yes. It's really, it's such an honor. And for me, I've been over the last, I guess maybe decade, maybe not that long, but I've been involved in various ways with helping people with their manuscripts. I love to do beta reads for people or write editorial letters or give some sort of critiques or feedback. So this seemed like a really natural way for me to take what I love and pass it on to other people who are really, I guess, specifically to people who are intent on publishing professionally.
Because are really looking to hone their craft and create a book that's not just for themselves.
For them, right. Because I think that's wonderful, but I really do think we need more good quality stories out in the world.
Especially for young people.
Yes. Yes. Especially for the children. And I think that any way that I can help people to achieve that goal and to get more of those good soul food stories out there is.
Mm-hmm. And having a critic like you and others in the program, I would think receiving that type of criticism would be beneficial. I mean, obviously it's beneficial, but also would be received well because of who it's coming from. Because one thing as an author I can imagine that would be hard is you created this work that you, in your mind, think is perfect, or as perfect as you can make it, and then someone else just tears it apart.
It's very humbling.
Oh, you need to cut this, you need to change that, you need to rewrite this section. So having someone who is kind and who has published books and who has had to do that with their own manuscripts numerous times. I mean, you said in the past that you've actually written 7 novels or maybe more, and only 2 so far have you published. Maybe some have been shelved,
some are in the garbage.
Others you're still editing. I mean, it's not I wrote it, I'm done.
Yes.
Type process.
It's not, and it's really important for writers to be able to separate themselves from their craft and be able to humbly take feedback and criticism from others. And that is a big part of it. And it is really nice to have gone through it myself. So actually one of the other professors in the program, Brian Cole, he's the CEO of Canon Press. He was my editor for both The Winter King and The Sinking City. So I've received edit letters from him. I know, and he's fantastic. And his ideas are really gret. Mm-hmm. And it's good to be able to, usually I read the edit letter and then I put it away and go take a walk.
I have to think through this for a while.
And then come back later with fresh eyes and be like, okay.
Attacked my baby.
Exactly. It is funny how personally we can take it. And so getting the sort of the thick skin that's required to objectively look at your stuff and say, okay, this was not my best work. I could have said that better. Or even the ability to see a critique and maybe you don't agree with the solution, but figuring out your own solution to the problem and just recognizing, okay, there really is a problem here. This is not going to be perfect. I am not God. I cannot, so that's
a revision of my perfect manuscript must take place.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay, well, moving into hospitality, you have 3 children, a husband, and invite family over for a regular Sabbath dinner, don't you?
Yes, we do. As often as we can, we do Sabbath dinner on Saturday nights for our family.
And how large of a group is that typically?
I think if all the family can come, I think it's around 22 to I think it's around 22 or 24, somewhere around there.
That's a pretty big group to host on a regular basis.
When it started, it was just my family, so the 5 of us and my parents, so 7. And then my in-laws moved here. We had cousins move here. My sister moved here. So it's just grown, and it's so wonderful. It's such a treat to have that many family members able to be under one roof together.
Mm-hmm. Do you cook everything, or do y'all potluck? Or do you just try to mix it up every week?
So I do the main dish and sometimes a side, or if it's something like meat that goes over rice, then I'll make the rice as well, and maybe provide the sauces or something. But what I do is I send out a text to the group and say, this is what we're having, and we could use this type of side, we could use a dessert, we could use drinks, that type of thing. And then people just respond with what they want to bring. And then when we invite other people from the community or guests visiting in town, then I'll text them separately and usually just have them bring a bottle of wine. Mm-hmm. So
that's a great idea for a large group.
Yeah.
So what would you normally serve, or what is one of your favorite things to serve to your guests?
Okay. So the last couple times I've made this for Sabbath dinner, it's been a huge hit, it's a half-baked harvest recipe called Mrs. Mooney's Secret Gumbo.
That sounds delicious.
It is so delicious. And yes,
not secret anymore.
And not a secret, because she posted it. You can find it on her website. And I serve it over rice. And then usually the sides for that would be something like beer bread and a slaw and fruit, and then a bunch of fun sauces or Cajun seasoning or, those types of things to go on top of it. What I really like about it, it's dairy free. It's, I guess it's not gluten free because you make a roux, but it's very customizable. So when I make it with chicken thighs and andouille sausage. I don't usually do as much andouille sausage because we have a lot of kids in the group and they think that's too spicy, but it's nice because you can, if you have pickier eaters, they'll take the rice on the side and maybe a little bit of the chicken and some fruit and that sort of thing. But for the men, they love loading up a big bowl with all the different seasonings and toppings. And so it's fun and it smells delicious. The other thing I love about it is it takes several hours on the stovetop to cook. But if you start it early enough, then it's just very hands off until the very end. So I'm not sweating over something in my kitchen for hours. Our Saturdays are really busy, so it's nice to have something that I can sort of fix and forget.
Do you make it the morning of, or can you make it a day or two ahead of time as well?
I think you could make it, actually, I'm quite certain you could make it ahead of time, because the nice thing about gumbo is that the flavors only get better the longer they sit. So,
and you cook the rice separately.
And you cook it separately, yeah. So you could make it, I usually make it in a giant stock pot, and you could probably just put that in the fridge and reheat it. I usually overcook. And so that one freezes super well also. So I have frozen that one in gallon bags and then gotten it out for a last minute dinner for us later on.
That's a great tip, because I do the same thing.
Yes.
I vastly overestimate for fear that I will not have enough.
Exactly.
I don't know why, but I have this problem.
I think it is the woman's eternal fear,
yes,
is that we will not be able to feed our people
yes,
what they need.
Or that all of a sudden the guests are just scraping the bottom.
Right.
And there's still 2 or 3 people in line.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I'm the same way. So having something that freezes well is a great tip.
Yes.
So tell me about making this gumbo. Is there anything that's different about it, or skills you have to have, or is it pretty easy for a beginner?
I think it's a very straightforward recipe. The only thing you have to watch out for is the roux. And you make that pretty early on in the process. I think that's the first thing you do. But on her directions, you'll see she says it takes 20 to 30 minutes. But if you are doubling or tripling it, which is what I'm usually doing, it can take up to an hour, because you have to whisk the flour and canola oil together I think she says 25 to 30 seconds, you're whisking it, and you have to, as you're trying to brown the flour. So you're getting that flour mixture to be like a caramel color without burning it, which is why you are whisking every 25 seconds. And that's really the only fussy thing about this dish. Otherwise, it's super simple. But I will take a stool over and sit there, and you can read a book, you can listen to a podcast or an audiobook or watch a show or something. Like, you just have to dedicate an hour of your time.
Winter King.
Or read The Winter King or The Sinking City.
Which, by the way, didn't you do audiobooks for those? Didn't you read
did.
them out loud?
Yes. I was not planning on it. And then when they said, okay, we're doing audiobooks for these, and we would really like you to read it, because it is true that I much prefer listening to audiobooks that are read by the author. But I thought, that's not my gift or calling. I don't want to do that. So I made a deal with them that I would go in and record the first chapter and they would listen to it and give me honest feedback. And if I was genuinely terrible, they could hire a voice actor to do it instead of me. So I did that. I went in, I read it, and they said it. They liked it.
It sounded great, I'm sure.
Yes.
I haven't listened to the audio, but I'm sure it sounds great.
Well, I refuse to listen to it. So, and I also refuse to listen because this was my real downfall is I put a song into my book. So there's a point in the story where Cora's younger brother sings her a song. And I went in and I recorded that chapter, because they only let you record about a chapter a day because otherwise your voice starts to sound scratchy. And I went in and recorded it. And afterwards, the producer actually it was my publicist at the time, texted me and was like, "You didn't sing the song. You just read it."
They were really looking forward to
and
you
I
singing
said,
that
"I
song.
know, because I don't want to sing it." And then he was like, "It would sound a lot better if you sang it."
So did you already know the tune?
Oh,
in your
no.
head?
Nope. We have a piano at our house. And so I sat down and made up a little song. And then I had to go back in and record the song. And I had to do so many takes because the first couple times my voice was so wobbly because I was so nervous. And I just sounded like a child on death's door trying to sing a little
now
dirge.
I have to go and listen to this audio, but
Oh no, it's real bad. I mean, well, I don't know. Actually, I don't know if it's bad or
you
good
haven't listened to it.
because I will not listen to
It
it.
is great.
But I did swear that I would never again put a song into a story. Although, as I'm saying that, I already did. I put a song in the Welsh fairy tale. Oh, bother.
Start plunking on the piano.
I know.
Coming up with the tune.
This one, thankfully, is a Welsh lullaby. So it's one that already has a tune.
Pretty easy to sing.
Yes, but maybe I'll get someone else to sing it.
That's pretty great. And where do you find all of this on Canon Press?
Yeah, I think the Audible is on their app, the Canon Plus app. So you can listen there, although I think it's also available on audible.com. And then the books are on Amazon or on Canon Press. So, but buy it through Canon Press because you want to support them.
Yes. So when making your roux and you're listening to her sing,
Yes. Oh, gosh.
be ready to spend a little bit of time stirring with a roux, just having a grandmother who I guess was born and raised in Louisiana. I know she lived in Louisiana forever. She knew all about that. And Louisiana is famous for their roux. And the key tip is that you can't rush it. So on this half-baked harvest recipe, when it says that you use medium-low heat, the idea might be we'll just crank that up to high and I'll just fly through this. And that is not how roux works. You have to do it very slowly to develop those flavors and not burn.
I'm glad to hear you say that because as I was doing it last time, I thought, is this really necessary? Could I not? I had that same thought. I thought, could I just go a little bit higher heat? But I figured there was a reason.
Well, I've tried it. And when you have the smell of burnt flour and oil,
oh no,
and you know you've ruined it, then and have to scrape it all in the trash and start over, then you
don't do that again.
Recognize why you're supposed to do it over medium-low heat for a long time and stir it without stopping, like you don't walk away from it.
Yes.
Yes, I know this from personal experience because I'm the type of cook who wants to just, let's go a little bit faster here.
Does it smell terrible?
It smells pretty bad.
Because I'm also glad to hear that because there was one time where I made it and I wondered if I had burned it because I think I looked away for longer than 25 seconds. And then I thought, I bet I would be able to tell if I burned it. Like, I bet the smell would be pretty clear.
Mm-hmm.
That
it has kind of an acrid smell. I don't know how to describe it because it has been a while since I've done it, but you definitely can tell when it's turned.
Yeah. Well, and it smells so good when it has that like nutty flavor or smell to it. It's really nice.
Like if you've browned butter. Have you ever done browned butter?
Yes.
Brownies or whatever? There's that moment where it's just perfect and it's smelling nutty and delicious. And then if you burn it, you can tell.
Yes.
Just the smell is just not right.
Right.
It's kind of the same thing with roux. Not that I'm an expert, guys, but my heritage, I should be an expert. Having a Southern grandma. I have made it before multiple times, but it's been a while. So I'm gonna have to plan this recipe.
It's a great one. I do use frozen diced onions in this recipe to save time. You can't really escape having to dice the peppers and celery. But I have one of those chopper,
Like a Full Star or maybe a different brand. Full
Yeah.
Star's been recommended by people before.
Okay. I'm not sure what it was. My husband got it for me for Christmas, and it is so great. It's like a guillotine for
That's perfect.
for vegetables, but it dices them all really nicely and quickly. So I use that.
That's perfect. And this particular link on Half Baked Harvest does have a suggestion of beer bread. Is this the version you make, or do you have a different?
Nope. I have a different one that's home in my recipe box.
Well, we'll have to get a picture of Christine's authentic beer bread. Because
Well, usually when I serve this, I have one of the guests bring beer bread. So I haven't actually made it in a while, but I will rustle up the one. I'll rustle up the one my sister made the last time because it was delicious. So shout out to Kate for making a delicious beer bread. And I'll get the recipe card from her.
Oh, perfect. All right. Well, I cannot wait to try this entire menu. I have family coming into town soon, so this may be something I have to experiment and make for them. They would love it. What about your best prep tip? When you have a house full of people coming over, how do you prepare?
So I do, like I said, our Saturdays are pretty busy right now. We have kids in sports and, well, not anymore. Thankfully, we're in the summertime, but through the school year, we've got rugby and track and homework assignments and different birthday parties and things. So a lot of times I don't have the whole day Saturday to dedicate to getting ready. So what I've started doing is I set my tables the night before. Actually, not the night, usually the day before. So on Friday, sometime during the day, I set up, we have 3 big folding tables and then 1 regular table that we set out. And so I put down the tablecloths and whatever decorations we're going to put on the table, flower vases or whatever. And I set out the name tags at the different places. And then I set out the napkins, to make sure that I have all the napkins I need and that they're clean and folded and ready to go. And that just is a huge weight off my mind because as long as the tables are set, I can still be doing stuff in the kitchen, but if guests arrive, it looks really nice. They can come in to see a prepared table. Yes.
Do you keep name tags just on repeat every week? And how do you add new people to that rotation? Like, do you handwrite them, print them? Mm-hmm. How do you do name tags?
So I use a just real classy 3x5 card and I fold it in half. And my daughter has beautiful handwriting and she does calligraphy. And so she will write the names and the weekly ones we just reuse until they get gross. And then we toss them and start over. But when we have guests come, I'll tell her the names of who's coming and she will make them their own little place cards. So
it is so special.
It's really sweet.
That is classy.
Yes.
I don't care if it's a 3x5 card. That is so special. And then they can take it with them.
It's true. I mean, and they stand so nicely on the plates and it's fun for my kids as they're getting older. They have kind of their own contributions, so one of them sets out the plates, one of them sets out the cups and the wine glasses. Lucy, my oldest, does the name tags. My son is still on fork and knife duty, so it's really one of them, they pour water or, it's nice to have it be something that we all do together and it's kind of a team sport,
Yes. And they're learning just invaluable skills for their own lives when they're grown up.
Right. Yes. So that's one prep tip. This is my other one. And this I think is probably my favorite. So when I'm on Saturday, when I'm getting ready, we have our guests come usually around 5:45 or 6. So at 5:00, no matter how unprepared I am, I stop everything I'm doing and I go upstairs and I get myself ready. Because I have found, and you probably have too, like there have been times where I've thought that I had time to go get ready and then a guest showed up 10 minutes early and I still have not put on any makeup.
Yes.
You understand this.
Sweatpants or your stained t-shirt.
Exactly.
Yes.
So at 5:00, I still have 45 minutes. So even if a guest showed up 15 minutes early, I'd still be fine. Or sometimes I've been up there and I've heard guests show up, and then I'm frantically trying to get the blush on and the mascara. And so I love doing that because no matter, for one thing, it just gives me one less thing to think about. I'm not constantly thinking, when am I going to go upstairs and get ready? But if I stop at 5, even if there are things that still need to happen, I can do those when the guests are around, but I cannot leave them to go change.
Right.
So
yes, that makes Total sense.
Yes.
And a great tip. Go have a pause moment. Go make sure that you feel okay.
Yes.
You look okay, then come back down.
Yeah. Helps you feel a lot less frazzled if you've combed your hair.
Yeah. Great advice. Back to the table setting. Do you have any favorite things for pulling out at summertime? You said flowers and tablecloths, napkins. Do you have any favorites that you would recommend or favorite brands? Or do you use cloth napkins?
I do use cloth napkins, yes. And I just have a big rotating stash that family members have given me over the years as gifts because they now know that that's a thing that I love. One thing, and I guess maybe you could link this in the show notes. I'll send you a link to it. It's I got these small white ceramic vases. They're probably only a few inches tall. And I think they came in a set of 6. I got them off of Amazon. And they're so beautiful because they're just little round vases. And you can pick just a small amount of flowers and put them in each one. And they can go all down a long table. And they're not so tall that people can't see around each other, see around them to talk to each other. But I love them. And they're white, which is so nice because I can actually use them throughout most of the year. Just I can put in a sprig of holly in the winter or eucalyptus leaves at any time. So
yes, that's such a great idea because it would go with any color flower.
Right.
If you had wildflowers, it would be small enough that it would hold them. Not
Yes.
A giant vase can't hold wildflowers usually.
Right.
It has to be something small. Mm-hmm. Or if you were buying something from the grocery store, you could just divide up what you bought into those cute little smaller vases.
Yes.
Oh, I will definitely post a link. All of the recommended items you can find on comeoverfordinner.com in the shop section. And it's just a spot to look for everything, whether it's table decor or napkins people recommend or pots and pans or whatever. So it's a very fun spot, as well as all the recipes that she's talked about. What is your best advice for showing warm hospitality to those coming into your home? How do you make them feel welcome?
So one thing that I have done, and I'm really thankful that I remember to do this because I tend to purge. I like to purge. And our youngest is 7 now, so I don't have a baby in the house. But I did keep a box of baby toys and also our high chair and bibs and a couple cups and plastic silverware and things. And because we have, especially with Sabbath dinner now, I have my sister just recently had a baby and another family member has a baby. So it really is so helpful to have things for them. And a lot of times when you have guests over, and I remember going to people's houses when I had a baby and they didn't have anything, for me to, then I hadn't thought ahead of time to bring a bib, or maybe I'd forgotten baby wipes or whatever. So to me, that's a really helpful thing to make them feel loved, is that if I know someone's coming to my house who has a baby, I set out the high chair and I put the baby wipes on it and the bib and a little plastic plate for their child, and that I think really helps.
That is such a great idea. I remember with my children when they were small, I remember so many times just eating with the child in my lap.
Yes.
Which you do learn to do as a mom.
Right.
But it is so nice if you can have them sitting next to you instead of on your lap the entire time.
Right. And the other thing too that I have recently come to realize is such a blessing to guests is the place cards at the table, because it can be, if it's just one family that we're having over for dinner, that's fine. It's not difficult to figure out where we'll all sit. But when you've got a crowd and everyone's getting their plate of food and then coming back to the table and trying to figure out, where do I sit down? Is this a weird spot? Do I have to move? It really is a gift to them to be just told where to sit. Mm-hmm. So,
and you've pre-thought the seating arrangement,
yes,
and who would fit where, and
exactly,
who would like to sit next to who and talk to this certain person.
Right.
Definitely seating arrangements. There's thought behind it. So that's a great idea.
Yeah.
What is your must-have kitchen item and where can we find it?
Okay. This is not really a kitchen. Well, it is a kitchen item. It is found in the kitchen. This sounds like 20 questions.
Where is it found?
It's in the kitchen. It's only because I just recently discovered these in the last year. So I do a lot of large cuts of meat that I need to brine ahead of time or somehow prepare and keep in the fridge. And I only recently discovered those gigantic plastic bags, the 2.5 gallon ones, Ziplocs.
And you buy them in the regular spot?
At Walmart. Yes.
Really?
And I didn't know those existed. And they are so massive that I can fit a turkey in it. I can fit, well, actually just this week I made Traeger smoked pork.
That sounds delicious.
And it was really yummy, but I had to brine it for 24 hours. And so what I used to do was I'd get my big stock pot and I'd make the brining solution in the stock pot. And then I would stick the pork in there and stick the whole thing in the fridge. But then, of course, the thing is you have to then wash this giant stock pot after you take it out and deal with all the raw pork juices. And oftentimes I wouldn't have really room in my fridge for that giant thing. But what I have started doing is I take that plastic bag and I put it in the sink and I pour all the different things for the brine in it, the hot water and the salt and the apple cider and whatever. And I mix it all just directly in the bag. And then I stick the pork butt inside of that and seal it up and squish it around and shove that into the fridge. And it takes up so much less room.
Yes.
And then all I have to do at the end is take the pork out and then just toss that bag. And so it was like a game changer. No cleanup.
That is a game changer.
Yes.
Wow. So you use it for marinating meats.
Yes. Yep.
What else? I mean, you could store a massive amount. Like you said, store a turkey or something.
Right. Yeah. So, or leftovers, if I have a lot of leftover meat, I can, although usually I like to divide them into gallon bags so that I can stock those up in the freezer. But marinating, brining, and then storing the turkey in it or whatever. And they are durable. They really will hold a lot.
Probably created them knowing this is what they're going to be used for.
I think so.
Like a brining bag.
Exactly. Because this is the other thing. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I have popped brining bags before.
Because the thinner ones?
Yes, the thinner ones like that
you tie
for the turkey. Yes. The ones that come sometimes like with a turkey brining solution. Yes. And I have popped them and had raw turkey juice spray all over my entire kitchen.
No.
Yes.
Let me guess, was this right before Thanksgiving dinner?
This was right before Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah. I mean, it was probably the day before, but like I had already mopped my kitchen floors. Right. I was in
you were in
no mood.
No mood for cleaning up raw turkey.
Exactly. Juices. So again, after that I think was like the tipping point for me. That was the time that I thought there must be a better way. And then I was in Walmart and I saw those big gallon bags. So,
well, that is a fabulous idea, especially around Thanksgiving and Christmas when you're doing those sorts of big amounts of meat.
Yes, big meat. Mm-hmm.
How did your bag pop? Just
my goodness,
the bottom or the top, or how did you just squeeze it to, or was it just meant to be no matter what?
I'm trying to remember. So I was wrangling it in the kitchen sink, and I think I stuck the turkey in, and I tied off the top, and I think I lifted it up out of the sink, and as it came out, it must have just caught on something because it just nicked and split and soaked me and the floor.
No.
Oh, it was wild. It was wild.
Fun.
No.
So lots of extra mopping and
yes. Yeah. And it's a whole different ballgame when it's raw meat, so then, or raw juices.
That reminds me of the time I dropped a jar of pickles out of the refrigerator.
Oh, no.
I think I mentioned it on here before that I've never dropped a jar of pickles in my entire life that I can remember. And somehow, after moving here, I dropped 2 within a short time period. And it wasn't raw meat, but pickle juice is very, very sticky. And just the worst. I mean, it just shattered, and glass everywhere.
Oh, yes.
Shattered, juice everywhere. I think in those moments, God is working on patience and other virtues.
You know what is funny is, so actually just this Monday, what are we on today? Thursday. This very Monday, which was the day off, and there was no school. And in the morning, I had prayed for patience, which is always a sketchy thing to do. Like, when you do that, you're setting yourself up for a situation.
Okay, I will give you an opportunity.
So I went to the store. I left my kids home. My youngest decided he was going to pour himself some cereal. So he got the brand new gallon of milk out of the fridge and just dropped it. And what was wild, so I got home to discover them all frantically cleaning it up, which was very kind of them. But as I'm standing in the kitchen, I feel a drop on my shoulder and I look up and there is milk all over the ceiling. Like, I don't even understand the physics of that, but somehow when it dropped and exploded, it splattered upwards. Yeah. So it was like a fountain of milk across the ceiling, dripping down the cabinets. And some of the cabinet drawers, of course, were open. So then we're dealing with that. And I thought to myself, this is what I get for praying for patience.
God, did you pass the test?
I hope so. I think I was able to plaster on a smile and be like, all right,
Okay.
let's clean it up.
Dig in.
The proverbial spilled milk will not be cried over.
There will just be a small glisten in my eye.
Exactly.
That's pretty great. Those are some epic messes. And you know what's funny is when I dropped the pickles, I remember thinking, sometimes you have kids to blame it on.
Right.
And you're thinking, oh, the child.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. In this instance, it's all me. It's all me.
I know. And I
have to be patient with me.
I pointed that out to my kids because actually the week before I had dropped the peanut butter, which was thankfully in a plastic container, but it's slippery from the oils, and I pulled it out of the fridge and it just slipped out of my hands and peanut butter went spilling all across the floor. And so I said, okay, we've done milk, we've done peanut butter. Like, what's next? Well,
yep. Accidents happen.
Yep. So,
well, along those same lines, do you have any stories regarding hospitality, funny or otherwise?
This is funny just because it's nice. I like hearing about other people's disaster stories. So
makes you feel a little bit better about your own.
It does. Yes. Yes. So early on in my Sabbath prep life, I decided to make jambalaya for the family, having never made it before and using a recipe that was a little sketchy anyway. Like it didn't really explain what you were supposed to be doing. And it was more of like you measure things with your heart type of recipe.
A pinch of this. And
yeah, exactly. And I thought it'll be great. Like what could go wrong?
Right.
And it's actually like a baked jambalaya. And so I made it. It smelled really good. I put it in the oven to let it set up, a little bit. And I brought it out and I took a bite. And this was maybe an hour before people were going to show up. So I took a bite of it and it was actually inedible. Like, I don't know what I did with the spices. I think it had something to do with, I used a wild rice blend, but I think I used a pre-seasoned wild rice blend, like the one you get in the Winco bulk section, which if I had known, I would have rinsed the seasoning off of it, And I handed a spoonful to my husband too, because I thought maybe I'm just being picky. And he's a Marine. He will eat
anything.
He will eat MREs. He will eat anything. He puts it in his mouth and then he just walks over to the trash and opens it up and spits it back out again.
That's terrible.
It was that bad. And it was a real bummer because I had spent a lot of time and money on that dish.
In a bulk section? I wouldn't have known it was pre-seasoned.
It was seasoned. Yes. Yeah. It's their wild rice blend. Now that I think about it, the blend should have tipped me off, but it turned out it had all the seasonings on it. So I was like doubling up on seasonings in this jambalaya. So then we were like, what do we do?
An hour, people are going to walk in the door. You don't have time to recreate it.
Nope. So we split up. We went to 2 different stores and we bought like all the brats that we could get because we had a pretty good amount of people coming, and we got chips and buns and all that stuff. And then came racing home, fired up the grill, and we served everybody brats for dinner, which was great.
And
people love brats.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Did you tell them your story?
I did indeed. Because again, as I said, I send out the text telling people what I'm making.
Oh, true.
So at least the people, it's all our family, but I had to send them a text where I was like, pivot,
911,
change of plans. Yeah. We're doing brats this time. So anyway,
that's pretty great.
But it was,
a great way to pivot too, instead of just having an absolute meltdown.
Right. And this was a good thing for me to remember is it's like,
B.
okay, pre-cooked brats take 25 minutes, to acquire and reheat and pretty much everyone loves them. So
yes,
it was fine.
And having a husband who can help you
divide
and conquer, that's pretty great too.
And can tell you when it is genuinely awful food that you have prepared.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so fun to hear all of your advice.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This was very fun.
Well, you're welcome. Until next time.